in life and your career, success or failure is, as you're discussing, sometimes the failure is a success. When you look back, it's a series of small and big decisions. Sometimes a small decision can be a big decision. Sometimes your job relocates. So you were working with Conan.
Right.
You have a family, and you're in New York. What went into that decision?
Well, you are bringing up a very sticky time in my life. My daughter was 12, maybe.
Right, I did the math, 25, and I did it when you said that before.
Yeah, and then those are just sticky years. I was very involved with a woman who's now my wife, but we were, and she was steadfastly, she's born and bred New Yorker, was not going to LA. And I really wanted to, just because it was the Tonight Show, and as a these are lifelong dreams of working on such shows, and I wasn't gonna pass that up. And so it was a crazy system that I agreed to and put in place, that I was going to come home every other weekend. I was the king of these red-eye flights. I knew everybody on JetBlue. I did this for 3 years, and it was a nightmare. I was like, my plan for each flight was, I'll just get drunk and pass out, and then I'll wake up.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be ready to go. And that, doesn't work for 3 years. Once I was doing it, I was just like, why am I doing this? And then the Tonight Show fell apart, but things were still in place, and we knew there was going to be a new show. And, I had some time to come back home, like a couple months, which was good, but that just sort of made things even worse the next time I left. So it was very, very tough.
So talk about, there's a brand, right? And the brand is Conan.
Right.
And then there's the products of the brand. And that's where you really came in with different products, AKA characters.
Right.
You've created some of the most iconic characters in late night. I mean, it must be interesting to know you've done it, at the same time always looking forward. But when you're coming up with a character, is it character first, voice first? Did you think about how it fit in the brand, or you just go pitch and see where it goes?
Well, we got very lucky. The writer's room at Conan was filled with a lot of improvisers, and so the vibe in that room was very loose goose, and we were there like 12, 14 hours a day. Nobody wanted to leave. Like, you started to get a sense of who was having a good married life and who wasn't, by like who wanted to stay and who wanted to leave. Like, it was a telling situation. Almost every character that I ended up doing on the show was just something that I would do late at night, trying to get people to laugh. If it made people laugh, someone would go like, well, that could be on the show, kind of thing. Because all my characters are just sort of freakish. They're not really organically.
So random.
Yeah, they're very random.
Random combinations.
Right. They're not like a cameraman with a disgruntled sort of grudge. It's always just a weirdo either walking through or in the crowd.
Minty,
There's a candy cane, just like insane stuff. And so that kind of came from just goofing around.
Well, it's interesting because at first when I was doing some research on you, and obviously, I know a lot of those characters, I saw a lot of those characters, and then I thought, oh, he's writing children's books. But it really makes so much sense of evolving your brand of writing characters for laughs, for comedy, for adults, but then writing for children through different characters in a children's book. It seems like a natural brand evolution.
I think it is. I mean, I think if you can get kids to laugh, sometimes it's a super easy laugh, but sometimes it's a more honest laugh. I think most of the fans that connected with what I was doing were junior high and high school anyway. And I do think my kids' book that I wrote, Wannabe Farms, is really not for young kids. It's kind of a young subject matter, but I think would be mostly appreciated by the 12 to 14-year-old sort of kids that appreciate wordplay and strange comedic weavings.
If you're back in New York now, would you
available for work?
If an opportunity came up on the other coast, what would that decision be like now? And what would go into that decision?
It would just be opportunity. You know, some things I do believe I would not be able to say no to. I have said no to some things on the in LA because it's just, it wouldn't be a passion. Like I do feel to make that move, even if it's just like, okay, I'm gonna go for 8 months and I'll come back when I can, blah blah blah. I really have to be passionate about it. And if that offer came, I would know it right away and I would make it work. And I believe, you know, my family would make it work very supportively.
Done it before.
They've seen me unemployed. They would like to see me employed, you know.
So tell us more about where you see your brand evolving. You know, right now you're an author, you've put out a children's book. How do you see that brand growing, or what's your ideal situation with that?
Well, my ideal situation, I've done a few other things in the children's space. I worked on a show called the Who Was Show, and that's a Netflix kids show based on this series of biography books that are like world bestsellers called The Who Was. And so it's like, who was Ben Franklin? Who was Gandhi? And we kind of compared it to the Muppet Show or Saturday Night Live, like where a celebrity would come by and play for an episode. But so we had a cast of kids that were the sketch players, but instead of like, you know, on the Muppet Show, it'd be Elton John comes by. This would be like, you know, Ben Franklin's here. He's going to come by and do some sketches, kids. You know, and so they would all be slightly historically relevant, but also just sort of like we had Ben Franklin and Gandhi doing a pretty kick-ass rap because they both have their faces on money. And so it was just kind of this Beastie Boys thing.
A money battle.
It was just called Faces on Money. And it was just hilarious. Like that kind of stuff.
It's very Hamilton of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I worked on the Kids Tonight Show, which was straight up like a mix of two of my like biggest passions, the late night space and kids programming. So that was really fun, and that was a great opportunity. And we were actually shooting that in the old Conan studio at 30 Rock.
Oh,
so
cool.
that was a very strange like return there. I want to do a lot more in the kids space. I also have a crazy fantasy that we haven't even touched on of becoming a bluegrass musician.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time anally learning my bluegrass flat picking. I want to entertain. I want to write. I want to
Do it all.
I like the kids space the most because there's a lot of stuff out there for them, and some of it is great. A lot of it is garbage, what I sit and watch with my kid. There's just so many ways to work in cool, helpful, interesting stuff for the kids that I think everybody's unique at doing, and I think I have a lot to offer in that space.
Yeah.
And I
And
think
add
it's
a music element to the kids program.
always a possibility. Yeah.
You know, kids, I think they need Tom Waits and Christopher Walken.
They do.
That's a reality check.
Right?
Never too early to get a reality check.
Thank you very much. Not many people think like us.
So Brian, in our own brand search with our company, you know, we've worked with futurists who came in and put us through the mini trial of Hercules, right? Of like discovering who you are. And at the end of the journey, it was like, you're an artist, be an artist. If you're an artist and you are who you are, you'll attract amazing people. And your Ballatino re-enters my life. Sharon re-enters life. And just everyone's really happy because I figured out who I was. Do you ever consider that you are absolutely an artist and that's your strength and your gravitational force is art?
I like that term, gravitational force. I know exactly what you're saying. I also feel very divided as a parent with a young kid. Like I always feel like I also have to be responsible. And to me, an artist is not responsible because an artist is at my best as an artist. I'm irresponsible with everything and just having fun and really letting the gravity of creativity exist. And I do feel that there's a few different hats that I have to wear. And so I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but I feel I'm an artist, but unfortunately I feel it's compartmentalized among three different personas.
You know, I think the joy and success of a brand to us and to leave you with it is knowing who you are. You're going to figure out how to turn that into something that feeds your family, which is
Right.
what we're responsible for doing. But by embracing being an artist,
Right.
you will do the best job of that. So it's not being a bohemian, it's being who you're supposed to be. And that's your brand.
I like that, Mitch.
So that would be like the perfect note to end on. For Brian McCann, Sharon Dasser, and myself, thank you for tuning in to Deeper Dives, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.